Okay. This is the first time we've streamed live on YouTube, so let's hope it goes right.
Oh, okay.
Wish us luck. Oh, and John, just let me send. Sorry, I won't keep you a minute. It's just one of John Bradshaw's not received the link, so I'm just going to send those to him, and then we'll get started.
There should be another. Is Dave Brown trying to join us yet?
Not yet, no. Adam, can I turn off my hearing myself, or is that something that just happens?
On your web browser that you can hear yourself?
Yeah.
Just shut the web browser down, it's fine. Shut that page.
Okie doke.
Yeah, it's working. I've just had a notification that we're live.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
I'm just trying to send John the login details, so just bear with me a second. Your guy's still not waiting, so we'll just give him another minute, and then we'll get the residents on board, if that's okay.
yeah, we should probably let them in a minute, otherwise they may dial off thinking it's not happening.
Yeah. Hi, Alison. Hi, Alison.
You may not want to speak.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, is that Alison?
So yeah, it's husband. I've just logged in on a computer. I've left my computer in work. Sorry.
Okay, what's your name? Sorry.
It's Paul.
Bye.
Did you say Paul?
Yes.
Okay, Paul, you'll be on mute at the moment, or in a moment, and then we'll invite you to speak later, if that's okay.
Yes, that's okay.
Right. Oh, we've got another resident waiting. So initials AA. So I'll just invite them in.
Okay.
Hello, AA.
Still connecting by the looks of it, Bernadette.
There you
Oh, there you go.
Hello, AA.
Hello,
Hello, can I take your name, please?
it's Alban Boyle.
Oh, hi, Alban. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to kick off the meeting. If Alban, you will be on mute until it's participation time. So, oh, sorry, here's Dave Brown. I'll just let him in.
Thank you.
Okay, and then once Dave's joined us, we'll start the meeting. Hi, David.
Hi, apologies about that.
That's okay. Okay, so can we all hear each other?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If I can just let everybody know that we are streaming live on YouTube. So if you could watch your language, that would be much appreciated. We've got a few extra people with us today. We've got Brenda Fields, David Brown and Molly Heaton from the Environment Agency. And we've also got Des Bromley, the PCSO for the area. So if I can hand over to Simon to start the meeting.
Yep, thanks Bernadette. Well, welcome everyone, particularly the two residents who have joined us today. It's it's greatly appreciated that, and I wish we had a few more. Today's agenda is fairly busy, so I think what we'll do is probably start with the police report first, if that's all right with you guys from the Environment Agency, and then if they need to, they can get off and do their job. But they're welcome to stay, and then we'll move on to the Environment Agency, and then after that we'll run through the rest of the council business. The one thing we have to do just before we start is to record any apologies for absence. So we got Colin McNulty sent in his apologies. He can't attend this evening. And I guess John Bradshaw as well at the moment, although I think he's trying to dial in.
He's trying to, yeah.
Yeah. So the second item on the agenda is just declaration of any members' interests. So I'll declare a non-pecuniary interest in the school should the playing fields come up in discussion tonight.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Possible pecuniary interest, because my wife's on a 0 hours contract at the school. So if I decide to use her again, I've got a pecuniary interest. But at the moment, I don't.
Okay.
None for me.
Good. Okay, thanks. So then we can go on to item 3. So this is for you, Deb. So it's the police reports for the month.
Good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Perfect, yes.
Yeah, good. Well, the good news for Sandymoor this month is there hasn't really been any incidents of note. There was a report of some youths, we presume, smashing some bottles on Pitts Heath Lane. Other than that, and a couple of incidents of children causing sort of ASB around Walsingham and getting into the playing fields. There's not been really anything to report. I've been doing some speed monitoring on Pitts Heath Lane and also on Walsingham. I mean, the thing is with Sandymoor, as I walk around, people will talk to me and tell me if certain things that are going on that aren't necessarily reported into us. So if there's anything that you want me to specifically look at, then obviously, let me know if there's any areas that I need to sort of concentrate on.
I think the one thing that's come to my attention, I can't remember the date of it now, but there was a rave on the Asmore estate, close to, I think, Stobart, probably a couple of weeks ago now. Was there anything reported to you about that?
Well, that obviously isn't my area. I can have a look at it and see what I can find out about it. But I obviously concentrate my efforts on obviously the Daresbury and Windmill Hill area. So you think it was a couple of weeks ago, was it?
Yeah, I
It
can't
was
quite
bank
remember.
holiday weekend.
Bank holiday.
That's right.
Okay, I'll have a look at that.
Yeah, it wasn't in our area, but we could very much hear it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
I
think-
see. Oh, right.
think
Okay. Right.
Yeah, I think it could be in our area. I think
Is it
Sandymoor
It is.
Sandymoor as a parish?
actually as a parish,
think-
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
on Oxmoor.
I thought,
Goes that
sorry, I
far,
thought you said
yeah.
Astmore. Sorry, Oxmoor. Sorry, I thought you said Astmore, around the Astmore.
Oxmoor.
I probably did.
Oxmoor.
It's my
Okay.
mistake. Yeah.
Well, that would have come up on my report. So unless it's been coded as an incorrect area, which can sometimes happen, but I'll certainly have a look at that and I'll get back to you on that one.
It went on till gone 4 o'clock in the morning. It was the Friday that Creamfields usually starts.
Oh, yeah.
So there was quite a few youths that were walking around Sandymoor dressed as if they were going to a festival.
Right, I see. Okay, leave that one with me, because I say
That-
occasionally there is areas that are coded incorrectly, so it wouldn't have necessarily shown up on my report.
I am aware of social media posts about it as well, and there's videos of it going ahead and showing what was happening and who was involved as well.
What social media site was that on? Can you tell me?
Oh, it was probably, well, I'm not very up to speed on these. It could have been something like Instagram, or it's the one where the videos are deleted after a period of time.
That's Snapchat, isn't it?
Snapchat.
Yeah, that was Snapchat.
Yeah.
Okay, right, I'll have a look at that. Anything else that's been brought to your attention?
No, really just youths hanging round on bikes, more or less round by the playing fields, but not specific to that. So around the school, there's been youths on bikes that have been quite disruptive.
No problem. I'm on late for the next few nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so I'll pay the area some attention, see if we can get that nipped in the bud.
Lovely.
Any other areas, maybe speeding areas that I need to look at, because I can do speed monitoring.
There's the lorries
pretty much
coming
anywhere
out.
that-
Sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry, Debs. I hate this forum. It's so much easier face to face. There's been a lot of vehicles coming out of the new Vistry development along Actonswood Lane, going on to Warford Lane, and they are doing quite a speed. Now, I've had a meeting with Vistry yesterday and brought it to their attention. But it might be worth just yourselves being aware that they're not putting the protective sheets on until they're on Pitts Heath. So there's a lot of debris coming out, and they are speeding down Actonswood Lane, which hasn't got top surface on as yet.
We've
Okay.
also had reports of them behaving incorrectly at the roundabout at the school, cutting the corner rather than going around the roundabout properly, which could be very dangerous.
Correct.
Okay. What sort of time are they leaving
Well, there was
the site
apparently
then?
40 vehicles that went to site yesterday that I've had reported. They are blocking driveways at first thing in the morning when they can't get on site. So from 7 o'clock in the morning, but the traffic runs all day. It's not school time traffic. So yeah, they are running throughout the day.
No,
Are they necessarily police matters, or are these more enforcement of conditions of planning matters? Are they crimes committed or not?
well, as I say, according to my report, with the information that I can obviously give to you, there's not really anything of note over the last sort of 30 days. It's been quite quiet actually, which is obviously good news for the residents.
Yep.
Not the ones that have been on to me. But I think because of the change of the route of the site traffic for Vistry, it's causing issues, and lorries don't know where they're going. So there's a bit of traffic issue on those roads. that's causing the residents a bit of concern at the moment.
Okay, no problem. As I say, I'll have a look at that, but obviously, Bernadette, you can contact me any time. Any of the residents can contact me via email whenever they want to. If it's not an incident that needs obviously reporting via 101,
Yeah.
pass on my email address. I'm obviously contactable on Facebook and Twitter as well to have a look at these issues that are causing problems to your residents. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, and I'll give you an update on what Vistry say, because they've said they're going to come back to me within the week, so I'll get that over to you as well, Debs.
Lovely, thank you.
Great. Is there any more questions for Deb?
The only other thing I'd like to mention, Deb, is if you're looking to check, it's again that bend on Newmore Lane, just by the entrance to the park. It's a blind bend. People come around there really, really fast, and it's very difficult, if you're disabled, to get across the road in time.
Yes, no problem. I can have a look at that as well. As I say, I can carry out some speed monitoring around there, and obviously, any advisories or anything like that I can give to anybody who's not driving correctly. I will do. That's fine. Anything else?
Just on that, Ben, there used to be one of those little automatic cameras, which came up with either your speed or I can't remember, it was a smiley face or whatever. If you that was there for a while, it's gone. I think that something like that would be good, because that is a particularly nasty bend.
That'll be the smiley SID. I believe that's something that Halton Borough Council would install in certain areas that are, that have been noted as being an issue.
That does its rounds, John. They only have 2 for Widnes and Runcorn, and it does its rounds. We looked into purchasing one, but Halton Borough Council wouldn't give us permission to link up to their electricity to run it. So that one's been a bit of an argument between us and Halton Borough Council at the moment.
They were quite expensive as well, weren't they? About 5,000 quid or something.
Yeah, we could get them cheaper, but going through Halton Borough Council, they were about 5,000.
Yes, they cost 500 quid.
We did say we'd influence where they went, so we've got a suggestion for where to put them anyway.
Yeah. So that's ongoing, that one. Okay. Anything else for Debs?
No, not from me.
Nope. I think that's probably it. Thanks very much, Deb. I guess just for residents, if you do have any concerns, you can contact Deb directly through 111, or if you wish, you can relay any concerns to the council through the clerk, Bernadette, and we can pass on those concerns to the police.
I think 101 might be better than 111.
101. What's 111? Where did we get 111 from?
111's a health one, so I don't
right.
it's queuing for a while at the moment.
Maybe Deb's dealing with health concerns as well.
Maybe. At least we know someone is.
No, I just any health concerns to me.
Shall I just open the 2 residents to see if they have anything that they want to ask Debs while they're on mute?
Yes.
So Alison or Dave, have you got any, sorry, Paul, have you got anything you want to say? Hello?
No, thank you.
Thank you. And Alban, is there anything that you want to ask? Where's Alban gone?
I think he's dipped off.
He's gone, yeah. Okay, so that's it then.
Well, you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, Deb, but if you need to get away, please do.
Right. Well, as I'm on a late shift, I need to be really out on patrol, but I'm sorry I've not been able to attend some previous meetings, obviously, because we have rest days midweek with working weekends and so on. I will do my very best to attend every meeting when, as and when I can. But as I say, any issues, contact me via email or through Bernadette, whichever's easier, and I'll do my best to address them for you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
And you too.
Bye.
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 Okay,
Okay.
so we can move on to the next agenda item, which is a report and discussion with the Environment Agency representatives here today. I'm not sure how we're going to structure this, Bernadette. Do we have a format?
Sorry, we haven't seen an agenda, the Environment Agency people. So I don't know how you want to structure the discussion, or if you've got questions you want to pose, or.
What I did for the rest of the team is that I sent Brenda the information that David Parr gave us on the short, medium and long term work that was going to be done with regards to Keckwick and specifically the subway and that area of waterways. And I think really we were all a bit concerned that this is the same information that we were given 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And so really we wanted to make sure that the information that we had, that the Environment Agency were planning on doing within Sandymoor is the most up-to-date information that we've got. So really it was to get your input into the needs and what's going to happen short, medium, long term within Sandymoor.
Right.
Okay.
Dave, I'm happy to start just with regard to the discussions that I have at the operational meetings with Halton Borough Council.
Sure.
And just just to provide you with an update on some works that are planned. Just bear with me a minute, Bernadette, 'cause I've got an email here with some information on.
Lovely.
Initial focus at Warford Farm, which is the balancing lake in the upstream area of Keckwick Brook. Halton Borough Council secured some funding through our local levy to install some telemetry there, and the telemetry will be able to record the water level of the brook, and we'll have a better understanding of how frequent Warford Farm is in operation. So that's something that's due to happen. I believe it was on the programme pre-COVID, but unfortunately things drew to a halt then with regard to site visits and being able to go out and work in the field. So I understand the conversation now with the contractor has been resurrected, and that should be happening. I think they met the contractor last week. So I haven't got a specific time, but I think it will be imminent. Alongside that telemetry at Warford Farm, they are also installing telemetry at the subway. And that again is to understand the frequency that the subway is flooding. Sorry, I just wanted, they're regularly monitoring the state of the subway flooding and responding accordingly. However, the council is arranging for the installation of flood monitors so that they can first respond more effectively following flooding of the subway.
And we do mean, sorry, the subway under the expressway.
Yes.
That one, yeah.
That's the subway, sorry, that is a focus of attention because it's the public right of way that goes through the subway there and is subject to flooding and silt deposition on the subway. So as I say, this monitoring, it will give more of a handle on how frequent the subway is flooding, and it'll also provide supporting information and intelligence in building a case for any future intervention in that area, you know, if they were wanting to look at an alternative route. So again,
an alternative route for footfall, you mean?
I think so. That's what I think that's what it would be, Bernadette. Yeah. We're working with Halton, the Environment Agency. We attend regular operational meetings with Halton, and Keckwick is a discussion point on that. So I just wanted you to know that these are some positives with funding they've secured through the Environment Agency to do these installations, and the monitoring should be happening soon with the contractor, you know, carrying out the relevant installations.
They've had several pictures of me in wellies up to my knees for the subway, so we have been monitoring it, but it does seem to be flooding quite regularly now, and a lot of it seems to be because the sides of Keckwick Brook are deteriorating, and so you're getting that silting. There's also a lot of rubbish that's gathered there. But I think for years they've actually talked about it just not being big enough. It's not wide enough to take the amount of water that is actually coming off Sandymoor at the moment. Even when we have the slightest bit of rainwater, it's flooding and therefore can't be used.
I think there's a problem with the actual design of the culvert. Isn't great in the sense that if you look upstream, the brook is a certain width, and then when it comes to the subway, to maintain that capacity, we took a central channel, which is the right width of the brook upstream, and added 2 side channels to the sides. And the engineers did the calculation and said that's great, that conveys all the water you need. The reality is that if you make something over wide in a brook with a high sediment load, which it does, it just gets siltation. You don't have the energy to carry that water through, and it's a known problem with the culvert. We've been here numerous times, and it's the same issue, unfortunately. And so it is worth highlighting that and we have had this discussion with Halton. It is their asset. It's unfortunate that the design it is. I think they've tried to remedy that by putting the raised walkway in, and then obviously doing the silt cleaning on that to try and make that passable. But it's inherently, fundamentally a problem with the structure. They've looked at options. They've looked at jetting out the side culverts. There's 3. They've jetted out the side 2. They fill up within, a sort of flood season, really, a short space of time, depending on the flows. And whilst there is silt coming down there, it's not abnormal per se. Rivers do meander, and that gives them their value. And with that, you do get silt supply into the channel. It's not necessarily excessive. It is there. You've also got to be realistic about what you can do. You could build fences or embankments all the way up and down the river, but that's very expensive. And you've got to say, well, what are you actually mitigating? And it is an issue, and I understand completely. It's an issue if you're trying to access through there. It is an issue. In terms of overall flood risk to properties, we did our works a couple of years ago to make sure there was no property affected. So it is a difficult one for us. We probably struggle to justify doing major works there, because effectively, whilst it's a nuisance and it's completely understand from your perspective to try and use the culvert, and if people take alternative routes and something happens, that's dreadful. But in terms of, as we are right now, in terms of trying to justify a business case for it, it's quite difficult, because it doesn't lead to flooding of properties, it doesn't lead to flooding of the road. It is impassable to pedestrians under those conditions, and that's the tricky part, unfortunately. So
being one of the residents that do flood, I'm in Glastonbury Close, and there are 5 houses along there that we regularly have a stream coming through our garden. Now we've got the bunds on the park, but the bunds I think, are funneling the water to come down into the gardens, but there's no runoff from the park, because Halton Council is saying that there's no room in Keckwick Brook for it to run off, and therefore it's finding an alternative route through our gardens.
Right. And so we've moved on from the subway, the culvert then, in terms of that, yeah. So, I mean, with regards to that, I mean, it hasn't, my understanding is it hasn't come into your house, has it? Did you say the garden or into the house?
Well, we had it into the house a few years ago. We've not had it into the gardens because I take up the drains and brush it away from the house. I won't allow it in my house. But we could not get insurance for the last 2 years because of the flood defences. We've been here nearly 30 years. So it is causing concerns, and it is causing flooding within Sandymoor, because Halton Council are telling us that Keckwick Brook is not big enough to take the runoff.
I think some of the problem here may be, you know, you put the flood defences in several years ago now, and that involved, I think, piling big metal sheets into the ground and then building a bank up. Yeah.
A core embankment, yeah.
Yeah. So I think when it rains very heavily, the surface water that then would ordinarily drain into the brook actually can't get there because of the flood defence. So it then finds its path of least resistance, which I think is downhill into these 5 properties.
I think there's tow drain at the earth embankment. There are tow drains. So it shouldn't be that there's standing water on the dry side. It should be that water should be able to filter away and get back into the brook. But obviously, if the levels are high in the brook, it's not going to be able to do that until the levels have dropped within the brook. But I wasn't aware that it was causing flooding issues to a number of properties on Glastonbury Close.
It's only really been for the last 2 years that it's deteriorated again. As I say, we've been here for nearly 30 years, and before the bums went in, before the additional work to Keckwick Brook happened, we would flood into the house on a regular basis. So we don't get that high now, but over the last 2 years, we do see the garden going down the drive, yeah.
So yeah, we weren't aware of that. So it's definitely something we'll come and have a look at and try and understand more completely, because there's no way in the world we want to build a defence where you get water on the dry side that can't get away, that should be getting away. So, and we wouldn't have designed the defences in that way. So there's something to understand about what's going on there, or what may have changed in the short term or long term. The thing I can say is that we have experienced some quite severe, you know, we had some proper storms last summer, and you know, we had obviously severe flooding in other parts of the catchment. So that you saw something then may you know, it may be related to that as well, but let's understand that, because we don't want that to be the case at all.
It seems to be a couple of days after the bit of the rain as well, as if it's coming down from somewhere and it's got nowhere to go. But
so
the
it's
Council are aware of it.
Sorry, this is potentially a low spot, Bernadette. Do you think that it's collecting? Right. Well, maybe if we could arrange, you know, I'm more than happy to go out and have a look for a site visit. Obviously, with regard to the capital scheme that we delivered there, you know, that would be annually inspected by Asset Performance that Molly's a part of. So we would be doing a check of the flood defence, you know, to check its integrity and that it's doing what it's supposed to do. So, you know, I would like to take a closer look at that and see on site if I can get an understanding of what's going on.
I've got pictures as well, Brenda, so I can send those to you so you can actually see what the situation is when it does rain as well.
Right.
So I can send send those to you. I'll send those tomorrow if that's okay with
problem.
you. Do you want me to send them just to you or to David as well?
If you send them via me, Bernadette,
Yeah.
I can share with Molly and Dave.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I was just interested about Brenda, where you were saying about the telemetry being installed to measure the levels at the at Walford Farm and the subway. Then, so I'm assuming you put that in, that sending the level data back to you automatically.
Sorry, this is what Halton are installing, but yes,
Oh, okay.
it'll send real-time data back to them.
Do you have any idea, like, is that going to be kind of monitored with a view to actually keeping a live view on it and identifying if a flood's about to happen kind of that day and doing something to stop it, or more for data correction? More for building up information, or actually for stopping floods as they're about to happen?
I think this want me to, Bran, or do you want to? Sorry.
I think it is about building intelligence and getting an understanding on the frequency. But it's for them to be reactive, to know that if it has experienced flooding, that they're in a position to go out and do the necessary clearance and clean up.
It's to build that evidence up. About how many years ago now is it? We changed the diameter of the throttle that allows water to go into Walford Farm.
This is at Walford Farm, Dave.
Yeah, so the telemetry will help basically give evidence of how frequently that's operating, because there was concerns that it wasn't operating as frequently as it might.
Yeah.
So it's really, I suppose, for that, but there's nothing to stop that being, okay, I don't think there's any good reason why that shouldn't be available, real time. We do have some of our other gauges on the internet, so people locally can look and they can see what the levels are.
Yeah.
The only slight snag, but it's basically going to be a level at the intake and a level in the actual balancing pond. So it might be a correlation of both, really. So you'd be looking to say, well, if the level upstream is this and the balancing pond is low, then it's okay because there's capacity in the balancing pond. But if they're both high, then that's the time when there might be issues further downstream.
Yeah. Okay. And presumably, as you've got more information, then as you build up more information, then you'd actually have more of an idea of what that information then will lead to, what patterns it's suggesting. Yeah.
And we can put what we do on other.
And sorry, I meant about the. Sorry, Dave, I was just on about with regard to the subway. It is that sort of clean-up operation thereafter, because I'm conscious of the silt deposition and what's being left on through the subway, which Halton are wanting to be reactive to, so they've got a cleansing operation in process.
Okay, thanks.
I think the good news for everyone is, since the orifice plate was changed at Walford Farm, that lake has been filling quite regularly, I believe.
Yeah.
So it is actually working now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we'd like to be able to show the hydrograph of that. I think that's what the telemetry will do. It's nice to hear you say that anecdotally, and Halton report the same to us. The record we've got is when Brenda came into work one day and on the train saw that there was water in it out the window and took a photo. So
every Christmas when I'm on the train to Manchester every Christmas, I seem to look and see Walford Farm, and it's when it was in operation, I was nearly hanging out the train to take a photo. It is working, and I think now with the orifice plate, it's more regular.
Yeah. It never, I mean, for a decade and more, it never filled at all. But about 2 years ago, when you've changed the orifice, it began to happen maybe half a dozen times every winter.
That's good to know. And I think understanding that will then let us know, is it right? Is it optimized? Could it be you know, do we need to throttle it more? Is it, you know, it's just those questions that we, you know, that information, the telemetry will provide that information.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, downstream of Walford Farm, we have new housing developments now coming on.
There's a lot of development,
yeah. So we must make sure that, you know, the underground kind of groundwater reservoirs are functioning correctly, and, you know, the output from those estates and those developments is what it should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think all the developments, they would have a controlled discharge from them developments. So as you say, there's quite a lot of attenuation areas along the length of Keckwick Brook, which should have a controlled discharge into the brook.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's been a lot of development over the years along that length of the brook.
Those discharge points, is that the Environment Agency who would monitor that that's all working correctly, or is that down to the developer or Halton?
When they're designed, they have to be signed off. And my colleague, who's now retired, Graham Bate, went through the, you know, how there's basically different runoff areas for each section of development, and as Brenda says, they're controlled flows into the main Keckwick Brook. So as part of the sign off, the developer has to demonstrate that, you know, that those are functioning correctly. So there will have been a sign off on the structure as built, and quite often, you know, yeah, you get a design, but it's got to be signed off as built. And my understanding is that there's no outstanding issues there, but I can't say hand on heart that I'm fully au fait with which schemes on, you know, on the ground at the moment.
But it would be the responsibility of the landowner. It wouldn't be for the agency to monitor or inspect them. It would be the responsibility of the landowner. They would be the riparian owner is responsible for that, to ensure the maintenance and they're working as they should be.
Do you guys pick up if it's not maintained properly?
So our asset inspectors will walk the brook, and if they see anything out of ordinary. And Molly, do you want to come in here on that? Probably.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, Molly.
So no, it's all right. Don't worry. So our asset inspectors, like Dave and Brenda have said, they'll walk up and down, and while it's not our responsibility to check them, if they obviously notice something wrong or there's a blatant blockage or something going wrong with them, then they report that back in, and typically we notify the landowner, remind them of their responsibilities, and then if it's a repetitive issue, we can take it up further, but usually our reminders does tend to work really, but most of the time we don't really come across a lot of issues constantly, because as long as they're operating as should, that shouldn't really be that much of a risk.
Great, thanks. Has any other councillor got any further questions for the guys?
I know this might sound like I don't know what I'm talking about question, but who's responsible for clearing all of the bushes from the banks in Keckwick Brook?
So primarily, it's the riparian owner, the person who owns that bit of bank. And there's if you own up to the middle of the river on that side of the bank, then it's your responsibility to maintain the flow of water from the upstream to downstream. So the Environment Agency have powers to undertake that maintenance on Main River, where you know, where there's a flood risk associated with that. So it's a bit of a grey area, but the straight answer is, in the first instance, riparian owner.
So could you say again, David? You're really quiet.
You've gone quiet now, Dave. On your
sorry, something happened then. I got loads of. Is that any better or not?
Not really.
Marginally.
Just say who it should be in the first instance.
The riparian owner, the person who owns the land.
Right. Okay. Okay. And as a council, if we get regular inquiries around, well, there's blockages, there's trees falling in the brook, you know, and all this, and certainly if you go down Newmore Lane and then look at the brook there, it's completely choked with, 6 foot high weeds, not quite pretty with the purple tops on, but It's just,
Yeah.
we get asked, well, who's responsible for that?
Yeah.
So it is the riparian owner, but for example, if anyone sees a blockage per se, that's where they can ring the incident hotline,
Right.
which is 0800 80 70 60 with a 24-hour response, and report it. And that's when one of Molly's team will go out in response to that and assess whether that's causing a flood risk. If it's causing a flood risk, we'll take action and remove it. Your initial question, you see, was about the maintenance of the banks, and that's kind of routine maintenance. And it does come down to the riparian owner. Then there's this kind of grey area where it is main river as well, and the Environment Agency have powers to undertake maintenance, but don't have a duty to do it. We can do it, and we generally do it in areas where, you know, it's not feasible, perhaps for landowners to manage it, or where there's an overriding flood risk. So it is a bit of a grey area. And just going back to the balsam that you talked about further down, we were down on Blackheath Lane and Eastgate Road and down at Oxmoor. And for example, from Blackheath on the expressway, you know, to start, we look at the channel and you go, oh my God, it's a forest of balsam. And then if you line up with the channel is actually open. There's a decent open bit of channel. And now is kind of worst time to go and look at it because the vegetation's highest. And balsam will die back. It does give us issues because it causes corrosion issues, and a lot of vegetation in the channel can cause blockages. During the winter months, which is when you want most of the conveyance, come November, December time, that will look a lot better anyway. It won't look as bad, just because we're seeing it at peak vegetation now, probably.
So if you have a situation where banks are collapsing into the brook itself, then is that down to the landowner to correct? That sounds like major try and put the bank back to where it should have been.
Well, it's the riparian. Yeah, again, it comes bank erosion comes down to the owner. A lot of people, you don't necessarily have to put it back. It depends. There's lots of factors in relation to that, but yes, it does come down to it. The Environment Agency will take action if the erosion is causing a flood risk. So, for example, if the erosion on a bank falls into the watercourse, that backs up water level and causes flooding, then we have emergency powers where we can remove that and take action. But it does come back to the riparian owner, I'm afraid, in a lot of these cases.
Right.
I think there's something that would be on the www.gov UK website. I know that we did have a leaflet that talked about roles and responsibilities. I think it used to be called Living on the Edge.
Called Owning a Watercourse is the document now.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Right.
So
can I just ask in the context of the Keckwick Brook going through the parish, who is the riparian owner? Is it us? Is it Halton? Is it the builder who owned the land? I mean, for the most part, it's not individual houses bordering the stream, although there's a couple of places. So who is the riparian owner typically?
I know in the area of the open space, that's Halton Borough Council.
Yeah.
I do remember from conversations we had at this meeting years ago that some of the hydro brake systems from the development had been defaulted to the Sandymoor Parish Council. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think we would have to look at who the landowner is, the registry.
Yeah, we have 2 hydro brakes, I think, don't we, Bernadette?
Yes,
from the 2 attenuation ponds on the land we took over.
Yeah, yeah. And the stretch that you mentioned, Steve, is Halton Borough Council.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just it's one of those things where you just question, and at least it's good to know who's responsible.
Yeah.
You do tend to get people just, let out a large sigh of exasperation with the thought that, something might actually get. But it's, there's always a cost somewhere to somebody, isn't there? And no one has any money at the moment.
I think I don't want to take away with regard to the capital scheme that we delivered, in that area, which was to protect the properties in Sandymoor, and we've done some further work to the right bank where we identified a low spot and a potential flow route there. So I think we have looked to address some issues here. But as I say, I will pick up on the Glastonbury Close with Bernadette. I don't know, Dave, if you wanted to just mention about further downstream, where we're waiting for the vegetation to die back in that area. Just on looking at conveyance.
So further down from Blackheath to Eastgate Road down into Oxmoor itself, Petwood Brook goes out to the MSC by the outfalls. There's 2 sets of outfalls, and then there's also the pumped element that goes out to the UU pumping station at Council Lane. But there's a sort of limit to how much can get out at the bottom end. And then there's the Oxmoor Lake balancing pond, which is a attenuation. So the channel is quite overgrown in the bottom end. But what we're looking at down there is effectively the neck in the bottle, the pinch point is the outfalls to the MSC. So what we're looking at is trying to ensure that in that bottom end, that we've at least got the width, that neck in the bottle width back upstream within those channels to convey the water through. Now the channels are wide through there next to Oxmoor, they're about 8 or 9 meters wide. And again, we talked about the siltation at Petwood Brook, the underpass. If the reason why they've started to silt up is because they're over wide compared to the natural width of the channel. So there's something around, the water is getting through there. It doesn't look like it. And when we were down there, we were like, trying to spot the river because it's so over vegetated. But again, it's peak vegetation, and in winter you do get some dieback. And some of that vegetation lay flat under high flows. The bulrushes and brushes will just lay flat. But some of the woody emergent stuff does represent a conveyance issue. It might be slowing things down. Though the water levels don't show a big rise across there. If it really see a rise in levels, you don't see that. It's something we're looking to do to make sure that is working as it should, and that the outfalls are working as they should as well, because that hasn't always been the case in the past in terms of their ability to open correctly.
I think from a layman's perspective, if you wait for vegetation to die back, it normally comes back twice as big next year, as opposed to clearing it out. And that, I think, is the concern, that actually the level of vegetation, it's going to be seen out of Jumanji, isn't it?
When we said about die back, so we can see what's what is what Brenda was really referring to there.
Yeah,
we're going to go down and have another look when the real, when it is easier to see the real woody stuff compared to some of that the other stuff. It does lay flat in times of flood.
When it's cut back, is it meant to be left or is it meant to be taken away?
Well, it does depend. There isn't a straight answer to that, because getting it away can create an issue as well. And historically, when rivers are dredged, guess what they did with the dredgings? They just piled them on the edge of the riverbank. So there's a bit of a, there's no hard and fast rule with that, really. It comes down to what's practical as well, as much as anything else.
I think just pulling Molly in on that though, Dave, there's also the environmental element as well in sometimes how we maintain. So there is, I don't know, Molly, did you want to just allude, Molly, to the maintenance and what we do along there?
Yeah, so so we go through annually, as Dave said, not at the moment, that downstream end, simply because there's a lot of issues there. Our plant can't necessarily get on those embankments as they are, so there's an investigation needed down that far end as we're going to start doing. We do at the moment a blockage debris walkthrough, and we do some vegetation management through that. So that would be anything that is meshed over. So bramble or long grasses that kind of create a fence almost of vegetation across the watercourse would be removed. And the bit between the subway expressway and that next road bridge also gets some attention in terms of grass cut more majorly to try and free up that channel as much as we can. All of our work is run through ecologists, and we have to have their sign off before we can get on site. So it is always checked through, and most of the time, unless we've got particularly sensitive watercourse to dissolved oxygen, it is typically left on site. The grass cuttings as almost natural breakdown on the bank side. We try to rake it up where possible and where practical, so it's not within the regular flow of the brook, even if it came up a little bit from heavy rainfall. But as we said, it's just what's practical, really. It's not practical to go along everywhere that we do vegetation management and remove it, because especially where there's balsam and other invasive kind of plants involved, the contamination then on top of that is a bit risky. So quite a lot of the time we do leave it in situ to degrade, unless specified by our ecologists as sensitive. So that's kind of where that all comes from.
Can I ask another question as well? Sorry I'm just trying to get a good understanding of it. I'm newish to the council, and I've never had the opportunity to talk to you before. So the other question I've got is that you said before, Brenda, that you obviously have a lot of dialogue with Halton Borough Council, and I'm just wondering then, so how responsive are they when a problem's identified? Can you hold them to account to get stuff done, or is that not how the relationship works?
I think we work we work in partnership. So, I attend operational meetings with Halton United Utilities and ourselves, and we discuss any hotspot issues within the Halton Authority. With regard to Halton, under the Flood and Water Management Act, they're responsible for surface water flood risk, and they will submit projects to address surface water risk, and they can look to secure funding through the grant and aid process with the agency to deliver projects. So we're not working independently. We are trying to work as partners with both UU and Halton Borough Council, but I'm not an enforcer. We're working in partnership. They deal with surface water issues. We look at main river issues, hence why we delivered the capital scheme up on Sandymoor with regard to the risk from Keckwick Brook.
So if you were to split it between responding to a hotspot versus, listen guys, this is really routine maintenance that needs sorting out, how responsive are they to your points of view on that basis?
I would say that that we have some fairly open and honest discussions. So yeah, I would. Sorry, I'm not really clear at how responsive. We openly, proactively discuss and listen to each other's concerns. So yeah.
I think it's a bit, around this riparian owner. I think John Secker's point about, if the owner's Halton Borough Council, you probably have a grading system between those that respond to your requests and those that, take a little bit longer, depending on who they are. And I'm just wondering, in the first instance, if we've got residents who are asking about certain areas where there's issues that they perceive, they may be wrong because the water is flowing and all is well, but at least we know how to go about raising a concern and if it's, you know, going to be addressed or how it should be addressed.
Right.
Really.
I think that, you know, the outlet is through the agency and through your local authority, and together at operational meetings we would be discussing it. We wouldn't be keeping anything. There would be open discussion. Keckwick Brook is a discussion point at our meetings. It's a sensitive area. It's a complex water system, with having the attenuation lakes, with the issues that are ongoing at the expressway, and obviously with the outfall points into the MSC. We've got Chancellor Road pumping station. It's a benefit that all partners are working together in that area, which would mean bringing Manchester Ship Canal to the table. We've already got United Utilities, ourselves, and Halton Borough Council. But as a water course, there is an awful lot that's going on along that system.
Okay, thank you. That's a great answer. I've really got a good understanding now.
Great. I wonder at this point whether it's just worth opening it up to, Alban. Paul seems to have dropped off now.
Yeah, we've got Mr. McIntosh as well. I think it's back. It might be Mrs. I'll invite Alban first. Have all the councillors asked their questions that they want to ask?
Yep.
Yeah, no more for me.
Yes.
Okay. So
thanks very much for coming in on the conversation. It's been really enlightening.
Alban, are you there?
Yes, I am. It's I can recall when I was chairman of the community association some 20 years ago, we had the flooding due, at that time it was due to the pumps going into the Manchester Ship Canal. One of them had failed and houses were flooded. Right. And I had a meeting with the Environment Agency, Halton Borough Council and UU to discuss that. And it seems as though it's the same old thing going over and over again, really, because we were on about what we've just been talking about, the maintenance of the brooks. I mean, I was walking over there, not yesterday, day before, and they are very much overgrown in places and knotweed and not God knows what everywhere. So I don't think that helps in any way to the smooth flowing of the system as a whole. And it just seems that listening to our representatives there, it just seems as though it's a conglomeration of a number of things, which are causes, apart from the silting up in the underpass, etc. But it just goes back and back and back, and it just seems as though we just go over the same ground again, rather than get a laid down policy of the council doing this, the landowner doing that, and the Environment Agency doing another, in order to create a properly maintained waterway. You know, because a number of us have said it tonight, a number of people have said it tonight. Yes, we discussed that at some stage, some years ago. As I say, I can go back 20 years on this. So hopefully we'll get more collaboration and more working hand in glove.
Yeah.
I think just in response there,
sorry, I was just going to say, I think it would be nice to have a timeline of what we can see that would benefit the Keckwick, because as Alban said, it's short term, it's medium term, it's long term, but not, in 2022 we're going to do blah blah, or in, you know, I think that's where the issue is, that it is dragging on, but not coming to an end on any points that we keep bringing up.
Yes,
I think
yes.
I think what we should acknowledge though is we've had some quite unprecedented heavy rain during the last couple of years in particular, and the capital work we've talked about has certainly had an effect and protected properties to a large extent, and no one suffered. So I think that should be seen as a success. And it's kind of maintaining that and building on it, I think.
Yeah, but conversely, we've had some very, very dry periods, which combine, as you know yourself, probably in your own garden, if you get a very dry period, you get the ground cracking, the soil and what have you. And then we get a very heavy period that we've just gone through recently. And that seems to just exasperate exaggerate the what happens on a repeat cycle. Whereas if it was maintained on a proper basis, from this date, the sides of the brook will be examined, and following that, they will be cut as a statutory thing almost, in order to make sure that it is, because the objective of maintenance is to prevent happening. So
the reality, I'm afraid the reality is that there'll be, in 30 years time, these issues will still be discussed. And part of the reason for that is the hydraulics and the hydrology of Beckwick Brook and its nature of its discharge to the Manchester Ship Canal. And I think, it doesn't surprise me to hear the history on that. And the reality is there'll be a history going forward as well. As to it'll be the issues will still be the issues. The underpass will still attract a lot of attention. And I think what we've taken away from this meeting is where we've got the potential sort of issues at Glastonbury Close. We're going to look at that in a lot more detail. Maintenance is a tricky issue, and it's the same everywhere. It's not unique, and we saw the Somerset levels, for example, get blown into the spotlight with the work there. And the reality is, a lot of maintenance work was done there, and of course, it didn't flood the next year. It didn't rain as heavily. But the reality is that now, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, the cost of doing that is becoming, there's no emergency government fund to into there anymore. They've got problems sort of there going on as well, but that doesn't make the news, and it won't make the news unless there's another big flood there. So I'm not trying to wriggle out of any responsibility, and I think there are things we can do around specific areas if there are if there are set areas where there really are issues. But there's a lot of hydraulic constraints, there's a lot of aperture bridges beyond which it's you don't, if they're the neck in the bottle at that point, there's no point over widening the channel upstream, because the neck in the bottle is the neck in the bottle, and that you can trace that through at various points. So it is quite it's not a straightforward scenario. It's not a straightforward set of responsibilities.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think that's perfectly correct. And after all, to encapsulate it, we are messing with nature, and nature is a thing which changes all the time. And most of the time we just react to it. But if we can guide it in some way, that would help. So we're both on the same page. It's just a question of, we agree that with it being a living thing, and nature is, we could do maybe some preventative maintenance, shall we say?
Yeah, sure. And I think with things like that is, it's to understand that the rivers do meander, and there will be silt load. Those are givens. Unfortunately, that's exacerbated, for example, by the height of the culvert under the expressway, which means it will silt there. Unfortunately, in the gradient there. But you're right. There are other areas where, by setting one bank, say with the vegetation, then we can ensure that there's a conveyance of flows of a high flow that we want, without working with rather than against, and nudging it the right way, really.
Yes.
Great. Well, thanks for that. I'm just really conscious of the time. I know we've taken up a lot of your time up to now. We're running a little bit behind our time for the meeting. Yeah, just is it Mr. or Mrs. McIntosh? Do you have a question for the Environment Agency?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Okay, well, I think given our time constraints, could I thank the three of you, David, Brenda, and Molly, for your time this evening. I think it's been really useful. I know you've attended a few of these meetings now over the years. We perhaps should do it going forward, maybe on an annual or biannual basis.
Definitely.
At least. Yeah,
definitely.
We'd be more than happy to come back and give you an update, and if you want to structure that in when it's more regular, maybe we'll take a shorter chunk of the agenda, that sort of thing. Not a problem.
Yeah, it's really useful. Yeah,
very useful. Thank you very much.
And right. I'll follow up a meeting with yourself, Bernadette. Keep that.
Yeah,
all right. Keep me posted.
You're
Thanks
very welcome
for the invite and your time.
Yeah, you're very welcome to stay for the rest, but please feel free to leave if you want.
I was going to leave if that's okay.
All right. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks all.
Bye, Molly. Bye, David.
Bye.
Bye, Brenda.
Bye. Okay, so we're on to the next agenda item. I know Adam's got a hard stop coming up in about half an hour or so. So I think if we can try and get through as much as we can, that would be good. So we're on to correspondence received, Bernadette.
Yeah, I'll just run through a few of them. I've sent you a correspondence out, so you've seen them anyway. There is an issue around the pond at Swans Reach, and it's a tarmac issue. I sent a picture out, and Simon, I think you actually went and had a look at it. There's some tarmac that's failed, and some block paving around the obelisk. I've had one quote in at the moment, and that's £250 to fix the tarmac and the block paving around the obelisk.
Yeah, I saw it last night.
That's from Mike. Yeah.
Did the decking?
Yeah.
The thing about one of the things that Mike, which I didn't see the original scope of works, but he actually got Gaz and Kev, G&K, to come in and not only clean off any dirt off the decking post installation, but also to jet blast the sandstone capping and part of the frontages. I've had two residents come and see me over the weekend saying it looks absolutely fantastic, but it's a shame that not all of it was done, so it all matches. So now we've got a bit of a mismatch look around that area. If I didn't see the degradation of the tarmac, but I definitely saw the dropping of the pavers at the side there, those blocks. I'm just wondering whether is there a deal to be done where he gets Gaz and Kev back and they finish the job and get it all done. I think the residents would really appreciate that.
Well, my question was, are we happy with Mike Wilding doing it for 250, or do you want it to go out to tender?
What are we allowed to do as clerk and RFO?
Yeah, well, we're allowed 500. So we can make the decision.
We're allowed 500. I don't think we can just award it without tender, is my gut. I think it's a process, unfortunately.
Okay, do we want to take a vote on it?
Is it a vote, or is it a duties of the council?
Well, why don't we just get an additional quote then for the work?
Yeah.
So
well,
I'm genuinely not trying to be awkward, but I don't think we can spend money without free quotes.
I have sent out the information to 3 people, the same 3 that I sent out to for the decking. It's just that Mike is the only one that's come back with the costing so far. So yeah, those are out. The next one down is grant application. I spoke to Terence from the football club, who actually put in a grant application in July, that we deferred until September. I had a word with them and said that we were putting out a new form. I gave him the opportunity to come and speak to us tonight, but is just going to wait for the form to be agreed and wants me to send it out for him. So that again will be deferred till the next meeting. We were meant to have a meeting with David Parr and HE today. We were advised on, was it Tuesday, that David Parr would not be able to make that meeting. We decided that he needed to be there, and so we are rearranging that, and so just waiting for a rearranged date. Bloor, we've done a site visit. When I say we, it's myself, Robin, Paul Hazeldine and Red Fox with regards to the POS, the public open space. We're waiting for costings to come in on that, and then we'll have another meeting with Bloor to go through it. Adoption of areas. There was a walk round Swans Reach with Holton Council and David Wilson Homes.
Did you get the email I sent you about that?
Yeah, but I'd already been told 2 days previous that it was happening, so we were aware of that meeting.
Yeah, the lady said, well, I don't know really. The woman from the council seemed to think that you didn't know, and she said, will you make sure that Bernadette knows? That's why I sent the email.
All right, well, I spoke to her 2 days previous and she told me that she was having the meeting. So we knew it was going on. But anyway, we're waiting for a report back from both David Wilson and Holton Council to see what needs to be done to take that one forward.
Well, the estate is now covered in yellow chalk or yellow something or other on all the things that need to be done. The guy from David Wilson Homes intimated that all this was going to be done pre-Christmas.
Yeah, that was the information that Claire at Holton Council said to me also, that that's the date they are working towards. The transfer of land from Homes England remains outstanding. This is the land on Newmore Lane that they've agreed is their land, but aren't cutting it and want us to take it off their hands and maintain it without any dowry, which we've declined. And so we're waiting for that to be part of the HE meeting when we have that. The local centre. I've been advised by Holton Council that it is due to go to committee on the 5th of October. I checked an hour before this meeting and I have sent 3-ish reminders or requests to check on that date and have not had a response, and at present it is not showing on the October committee agenda.
Sorry, what was that date that that you'd been told?
5th of October.
5th of October. Okay.
5th of October. That is the next planning committee meeting.
It is.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Well,
can I just stop you there, Bernadette? It's showing on there and it's on the agenda. There's a report on the Sandymoor Local Centre for planning applications to be determined.
Oh, well, that must have just gone on tonight then.
It is believable.
It wasn't there when I looked earlier, so it has gone on at some point this evening.
All right, okay.
There's the link on the chat if people want it.
Okay, so that's
so
fabulous.
we're down to talk at that, aren't we, Bernadette?
Well, yourself and Adam said that you were willing to talk because it'll only be a couple of days after my op. So I don't know if I'll be able to join that meeting.
Okay, but it may be done by Zoom anyway.
It probably will.
Yeah.
Is there a lot on there, Adam?
There is, just checking I'm not muted, there is 2. There is a full Sandymoor Local Centre and the Dwellings and Extra Care Galliford Try is also on there.
Oh.
And they both have the same recommendation from the planning consultant at Halton to approve subject to conditions.
Right.
So that's just for clarity for those watching. Development control reports are drawn up by the planning officers at Halton. They then make a recommendation to the councillors who sit on that development control committee, and they may or may not agree with that application. I mean, we've seen it both ways during our time here.
Yeah, but it's good that it's on there. So
okay, so as it gets closer to that date, then between the three of us, we need to make sure that we're represented at that meeting.
yeah, the email that or the comments that we made at the time are on the local centre's SharePoint. So if you need to have a refresher, that's what's there. But when they do the agenda, they usually put the comments that everyone's put down anyway. So that's probably going to be on the agenda point for the meeting anyway. Yeah. There was an overgrown tree that was on our land that's now being cut back. That was part of the SLA 1, but as an extra, not as a built-in cost, because it obviously hasn't been done for 10 years. It doesn't need to be done very often. So it is an additional cost, and it has now been cut back. The verge on Warford Lane is between the pathway and the fence to the playing field. That land belongs to Sandymoor Parish Council, and so should have been included on the service level agreement 1. So it is now has now been added to the service level agreement 1, and it has had 2 cuts, and it's due to have a dressed cut this week. I was advised that there were some trees and bushes overgrown on a pathway at Walsingham, heading up towards the park, the pathway there. It was very overgrown. Contacted Halton Council, that's now been cut back. Do you know where I mean? Where the brick building is on Walsingham.
going so up the quite steep hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
actually, I should have got in contact with you because I go running down there, and I just ducked automatically every time. But it's only about 3 foot high.
You don't need to now. It's done. The CCLA meeting, both Simon and Colin, with myself as clerk, are going to arrange a meeting with CCLA, and that's the company that we have the dowry with. We decided to have that meeting after we'd had the Homes England meeting, because we would know what financial situation we're going to be in with Homes England. But what I've also done is, with the paperwork I've given to Simon, I have included a document for himself and Colin to sign as authorisers on that account, because at the moment it's just me. And as the financial team, I thought it should be Simon and Colin to be on that CCLA form also.
We identified that during a kind of financial audit by the financial working group. So we thought, it needed at least 2 signatories. So with Colin on there as well, that fulfills it.
Yeah. The next one, JDH. This is the internal auditors. They just sent a letter of to see if we want to use them again this year. A letter of engagement. Thank you. And I've put engagement letter there anyway. So, but they've just sent a letter over to see if we want to use them again this year. I think last year they were invaluable and gave me a lot of information outside of the internal audit as well. So my recommendation would be to use them again, but again, are you all happy for us to use them?
I'm happy to get some continuity, and you know, they know us now, so they'll have a good head start.
They're the ones on the list from
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
can I just really quickly correct? I've just made a massive cock up. I was looking at October 2019, where both those applications originally came to planning and were deferred.
Oh,
You're
right.
absolutely right. October 2020 will be a week before the meeting when the papers are published. So that's why it's not up yet, because it'll be probably in about a week and a half. It'll go
Yeah,
live.
they have to have all the paperwork with the committee 3 weeks before the date. So that's why I've been chasing Tim at planning to check that it's going to go. But we've not had any confirmation of that as yet.
Yeah, and they're always pretty hot. It's exactly a week before the meeting that the agenda goes live. So.
Yeah, there's been a lot postponed. I'm just hoping that this one isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So JDH we've covered. I had a Zoom meeting with Vistry yesterday because there's been quite a number of issues around, sorry, this is the Galliford Try development, Linden, they're under a whole host of names. But there's been a lot of issues around the construction traffic. The site traffic should have gone, or they advised us was going to go up Walsingham and exit via Actonswood Lane. As it happens, they've been using Actonswood Lane for both ways. This has caused a lot of traffic build up on Actonswood Lane. They've been ignoring the roundabout at the school and just turning right. They've been blocking driveways. They've been driving up Walsingham, figuring out they can't get through on that way and reversing all the way back. So there's been a number of construction traffic issues around the site. One thing just to clarify is the site route was not a condition of planning. It was a document that was added to the rest of their documents, but Halton Borough Council did not say that it was a condition of planning that they had to use that site. Halton Borough Council have said they can use any highways, but because of the number of issues that I've had with Vistry, they're going to reassess the situation. They're going to move the site office back into the site further, so any vehicles that come that can't go right on site will be able to, they'll have a holding bay just within the compound. But they're also going to look at the risk assessment on using the original site route. And so they have assured me they will get back to me within a week. I've advised them of all the complaints I've received, and they're going to comment on those as well. So it's just to make you aware that that meeting had taken place. It was constructive meeting, and they are happy to sit and communicate with us and try and overcome the issues that we've had to start with.
Sounds like good progress. We just should see what the outcome of that is, and then you know, keep feeding back any comments and complaints we get to them.
Yeah.
But from what you said, Bernadette, there's no compulsion that we can bring into bear, or even using Halton Borough Council and the conditions. It's
No.
essentially putting moral pressure on them, unless they are, I mean, things like turning right at the roundabout without going round, that's a traffic offence, and
it is.
We should log those with the PCSO,
which is exactly what I have done. I've logged it with the PCSO. Also, Actonswood Lane hasn't been top coated yet, so there's raised manholes, so they're not only speeding along Actonswood Lane, they're deviating to go past raised manholes. They're also not putting their protective covers on when they leave site. they're taking them off too soon. So there was quite a number of issues around the construction traffic, of which is O'Gara and D Morgan, and they're going to speak to both of those, and that will form part of the response they send back to me also.
Okay.
Okay. And then the last one is the playing field. There has been an issue with floodlights on the playing field. And I have to say, this is part of the day-to-day running of the playing field, and so is the responsibility of Sandymoor Ormiston Academy. The guy that's taken over from Bob could not figure out the timer. He didn't have the manual. Bob did not pass the manual over. So I got him a copy of the manual, and he is still having issues with the timer on those floodlights. So I've asked Horticon, who actually did the construction, to get some contact details for the lighting company, and then the school can ring them direct and be talked through it. Myself and Bob had already done a check on the floodlights. We checked the timers, we checked the lights, and so we know that those were working prior to Bob leaving. I did suggest that they ring Bob so he could go and show them, but apparently that's not something that they can do. So it's been teething problems with the floodlights, but hopefully that will be sorted soon. There's been a resident that's contacted John Bradshaw that I'm aware of, and there's a few complaints that I've received, mostly of the floodlights, but also of the noise at kicking out time, and also youths hanging round or climbing over the fence to get onto the grass playing field. Because the floodlights are on, it's perfect for them to climb over the fence and have a good a game of football. I've instructed them to ring the police if that happens, and for the police to deal with that matter.
Mm-hmm. And further signage is going up on the fence as well, I believe.
It is, yeah.
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 And if this is all part of the bedding in, that they need to get used
Yeah.
to using it, and they need to deal with these issues. So you're absolutely right in the approach, and I'm sure the school will get on top of it very quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to see how complicated that manual is.
I'm
really
curious, to be fair.
Yeah, have you got it to hand, Ferdy? Could you just email it out to us? Because I want to know what's so confusing.
I think one of the issues is it's a young girl that sits in the community room, and because they can't sort the timer out, she won't go and turn the light off. And so they've asked for a light switch for the floodlights to be put into the community room. But really all it needs is to someone to work out the timer.
Okay.
So I'm dealing with that and Horticon, and hopefully we'll get that sorted out as soon as possible.
Brilliant. So if we move on to the next part, so this is public participation. So we do have 2 members of the public present.
Okay.
Because of time constraints and so on, we're going to have to restrict each of you to 3 minutes, thereabouts. So Alban, do you have anything further to ask?
With reference to the planning meeting, the one that was postponed last year, I'd spoken to Halton Borough Council and put my name down to speak, and I spoke to Mr. Hazelwood, and he said I think he wanted to speak as well, but it was never resolved because it never happened. and because I put, I'm assuming this meeting is taking into account the over 55's living accommodation, which was the main thing I was complaining about. Because
as Adam said, he actually looked on the wrong thing. He looked on the wrong year.
Was the 2019.
No, I know, but
sorry. And that's obviously the last planning we saw. We're presuming it's the same application. I've not seen a material change to that application go in. So any determination is based on that application, you're right.
Yeah, so what it was, my main bone of contention was the over 55's living accommodation and how it's encroached onto the community hall, community centre, and stolen their access gate, which unfortunately will entail in future the, for example, a bin wagon, or say a wagon, a small Pantechnicon or whatever, trying to deliver stuff or remove stuff from the hall, having to negotiate in reverse through that car park, through the gates where the gates are supposedly being moved to, and have to turn there with something 20 or 40, 30 feet long to go around the side of the building. Now, I don't know how or why it happened that they were allowed to steal the other access point, the main goods access point. Because if you look at the thing and imagine, as I say, a 30-foot by 10-foot wagon, bin wagon trying to reverse down there, and it comes to the gate of the proposed gate of the building, and it's got to reverse in, and it's a very tight turn. So I don't know what's happening with that, because it was never, I never got a chance to go on talk about it, or it was never decided.
That's why it's going to committee. If you actually put a comment in, then they should inform you when it's going to committee. And then if you wish to speak at committee, then you can go on a list to speak. So that is down to Halton Borough Council. And unfortunately, because the comments have gone in, the comments of those are the comments they'll use for the planning committee.
Well, yes, it was coupled with the parking, because there's going to be overnight parking there, obviously, and the position of the hall to the accommodation, the living accommodation. If you imagine you've got a brass band concert going on in that hall till 10:30 or whatever it is, or a pop concert or whatever it could be, it doesn't matter.
Sorry, we're running out of time, Alban. Can you want to finish off?
You've got the question of noise. Also, you've got the question of they only had 15 car parking spaces. They took it away and came back with 21.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, it's over 50, over 55s. A lot of over 55s are still working. So they will take up all the front of that building, car parking spaces next to the hall. So if the hall has any functions, what are you going to do for parking?
Yeah, unfortunately, because the comment's already gone in, that's down to the planning committee now, Alban. But can we move on now?
Yes, I'll ring HBC up myself and ask them what's
our response. We raised similar concerns around the access to the hall, and I don't think we used the term encroachment, because ultimately they're not developing any of the land that belongs to the hall. It's just the land that surrounds it. I think we did say it hasn't seemed to be suggested to be actually living well with its immediate neighbours. So we did raise concerns around that as a council.
It was just the gates
we can hear, the better it will be. So Alban, if you're speaking as well with that as your topic, that'll be really helpful, and it means we can probably get more airtime to do the parish council, the rest of our response. And if we leave the access to you, that would work really well, actually.
Yes, well, it was just the fact that they've not taken any of the land of the hall, but what they've removed an access point, a very important access point. That's what I was trying to get at. Thank you, Adam.
And don't get me wrong, our response was broadly positive to the development, the fact that we did want a local centre and we need a local centre. It was
yes.
just a few tweaks that could be quality of life tweaks for everyone involved.
Yes, I agree. Yes, to the shops and all that business and the extra parking and so, the parking. But it was just this point where you've got a crunch position between those buildings being so close together. And if they turn round and get a sound prevention order, that could have a very big impact on the hall.
Yeah.
Okay.
A brass band going on till 10 o'clock at night or 10:30. You don't know, because there's, I think it's RHS or something. There's a set distance.
We're going to have to move on. I'm sorry, gents. We're going to have to move on.
Thanks, Alban.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. McIntosh. I do know your name and totally forgot.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
You perfectly, yes.
I think most of it's been covered. It was really to find out what issues have been raised about the Galford Pride.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Hello?
Yeah,
that's better.
There you go.
That's better.
Hi. Most of it you've mentioned, Bernadette. I was going to ask what issues had been raised about the Galliford Try, Vistry Homes, Linden Homes, Vistry partnerships. And you mentioned about the traffic.
Yes.
Concerns. A couple of other issues I've got is one, the late notice of the piling works. The letters dropped on the Thursday, and the piling work started on the Monday. So we had 1 working day notice of those works, and that introductory letter should have arrived before they even broke ground. So I wasn't too happy about that. They have commenced work before 7:30, so that's in breach of their planning conditions. I rang them about that and it has improved, but they are slipping back into running cabs to warm them up, and as it gets colder they'll probably do more of that. So they literally at 7:30 start dumping, and piling starts a bit later, so that's not an issue. So they have addressed it slightly. One of the other things, their site security is very poor. I went round to see the site manager about this letter, and was given access to the site. They had a security guard on. Just wandered across the site, excavators running, not safe at all. I went back Saturday to take some photographs, and the gates were wide open and no security. So it's a family estate around there. So kids love diggers, and the dumpers and excavators were running. So they have Vistry partnerships, or whichever builder it is, they have some issues to address still. And I was glad to hear that you've obviously been in contact with them. So,
and a couple of those I did pick up with them. I did pick up about the piling works, and I have picked up about the 7:30 because they have come in to me. I wasn't aware of the site security, so thank you for that. And also the gates being open, I wasn't aware of that. So that's great. I can make them aware of that now as well. Thank you.
Well, I obviously I partake of the walking football. So on Saturday after the match, or after our game, I will go and have a look and see.
Thank you.
The gates are open, because they will be working, but they have been okay. They've been finishing at 1 on the Saturday, so if not before. So that's been quite good. But I'd be interested to see because one of the piling machines failed, I believe, so they might be a little bit behind now. So whether they do some piling on Saturday, we'll keep track of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Other than that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Right, so we're going to move on to the normal business now, aren't we, Simon?
Yep. So please stay. You're free to stay. There's some administrative bits to do next. So the first one is to consider and comment on any planning applications. I don't think there are any other, Bernadette, as such.
One came in today, and it's a revisit on the Red Row planning application. It only came through today, so I've not had a chance to put it on the agenda. John and Steve have had a look at this, and it just seems to be a little bit of a tweak from the original. But again, we can speak at that one at the next meeting because we've got enough time, and we can go through it in more detail then when you've all had a chance to have a look at it. It's the Red Row planning application.
There was quite a lot of comments that the joint meeting between all 3 or 4 parish councils had up at the what's it called, Lewis Carroll Centre, when the first of these came through. So this is the one that's just off the A56, isn't it?
Yes.
At the Delph Lane A56 junction, and it is linked with the lower end one, but it is exclusively the top end that they've put in. It would be really helpful for the next meeting if we could dig those comments out, because I know there was some quite useful things that straddle Daresbury, Preston Brook and us. And it is almost at that tri-party point, so that'd be good if we could get them out so councillors can have
we probably could do with pulling together all the applications. As you rightly say, this is just a tweak to the top end of that top piece of the other side of the canal. But if you look at the one of the maps, it shows a new road going down across the canal just to the left of the existing bridge, and apparently sweeping away southwards. So I'm unclear at the moment what the current plans are for the road structure below the canal. In other words, around our house at the bottom of Delph. We've seen a number of plans, but I don't know what as it were, the up-to-date position is. It's always very difficult because they send in through changes which are just couched in generic language, and you have to look very closely to figure out where it is. Because we really, and I think your point is a good one. This straddles the interests of a number of councils, certainly Preston Brook, Daresbury, and ourselves. And maybe we could at some point get together with those other councils and look at the proposals as a whole, because I think they need to be taken as a whole. The links up to the A56 across the canal, down through past your house on Keck under the railway there, and the link up onto the expressway, all of which are, I believe, in play, but I don't currently know exactly how and how they all go together.
Well,
I will get together as much.
We don't know whether someone's just drawn some arrows in terms of, yes, we need to improve the access either under the railway line or over the canal. It is kind of a little bit vague. Someone just parking arrows on, including, which I thought was hilarious, the fact that they've put a triangle for a local centre on as well. And if that's built before the one in Sandymoor, it'll be an absolute travesty, won't it?
Well, it'll be the third local centre that's been on a planning master sheet. It hasn't been built, if that's the way, because we've got one up at the Daresbury Labs, we've got one at the bottom end of Delph Lane next to the Daresbury Science Park, and then we've got the Sandymoor one. There was always a worry, and this is the context we need to think of these. Each application is determined separately, which is a bloody nightmare, and that's just because of the way of the plan. The problem we've got is if you put the two of them together, there was a bridge just south over the railway line of the existing bridge, and it was a bigger road. And the worry that myself and David Felix always had was that they would build up to the bridge, not deliver the bridge, and then they would build the other direction up to the bridge, and the bridge is a really expensive bit in the middle that they'll never join up.
Yes.
That's a concern. So there needs to be some form of condition, and it's going to be really difficult for us to get this through, because ultimately this isn't land owned by Homes England, where we can put conditions on the onward sale, like has happened in many of the places in Sandymoor. This is land that's owned by a farmer, and he's done it on a private sale. So
they've got part of their application is to widen the Keckwick Lane Bridge. Well, it's the West Coast Main Line. I've got no idea how they're going to do that in a short time period, given that Bloor Homes now own the land to the right of it, and the building line for the estates on the opposite side goes right up to the edge of Keckwick Lane anyway.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's the bit
both
of
sides.
planning
It does,
application
yes.
that then is a new junction, isn't it? Because that's what's the widening of Kekwick Brook is the junction, the expressway junction one.
but
when
the
we take
plan
up the
doesn't
council.
show anything off the expressway at all. So it just looks as if someone said, yeah, widen that, put a red arrow on it, and we'll come back to it. Meanwhile, we'll just deal with the estate up at the top at Daresbury.
Yeah, I think Adam's point is right, that they will win by adopting it piecemeal and just putting an arrow or a brief indication that, oh yeah, this bridge will get fixed in a different application, and that other application never happens, whether it's the underpass for the railway or the expressway link or whatever it is. And we'll wind up with a whole load of houses built but inadequate access. And I mean, to some extent, I think that's what you've got on Sandymoor. That those houses, we talked about this last month, up beside you, are going to have an access which kind of curls like a snake all the way around, back across the estate, past the school, and then back out again. I mean, it's
it's
very
like
unsatisfactory.
It's something like it's over a kilometre to get from one end of that road just down to the roundabout at the school. So it's just a kilometre, even just to exit there.
In a coherent world, they would have planned that to come out on Kekwick Lane. At the moment, it's now too late because Swans Reach is in the way. So that's an example of the sort of piecemeal.
They put a path straight onto Kekwick Lane. I mean, the speed that the cars come down Kekwick Lane, exiting under the railway line, someone's going to get mowed down off there because they're going to put a path straight onto it. It's madness.
That is actually on the SPD, that piece of land. There's a little bit more that's being proposed developing that piece of land around the back of Kekwick, but the vehicular access was always around the bottom and a massive trail. So that hasn't really changed.
So I wonder on this application then, if we all send the comments into Bernadette prior to the next meeting, and then we can discuss it as a team at the next meeting.
Give me a week to get as much.
If
you give me a week to get as much information as I can on all the other plans and comments and whatever, and put them in the shared drive, then that might give you more basis for a more detailed comment, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so I'll have that in by the 25th.
Okay, so on to item 8 on the agenda. So the minutes from the last meeting. Is everyone happy that they're a true record? I'm okay. Yeah.
I wasn't the councillor, so I can't say.
Okay, so I'll sign those off, Bernadette, and drop them back.
Thank you.
So item 9, so we move on to finances now. So since the last meeting, in terms of receipts, we have a receipt from the school, I guess, Bernadette, for the playing field.
Yes.
Amounts to £5,432.50. So that's money into our account. Payments out, total £8,155.27. And you've attached a sheet, Bernadette, and a document that shows payments for authorization.
That's right.
And that they total that amount. Of that 8,155, I've lost my space here. I've got too many tabs open on my computer. Let me shut some down. Then £659.97 was VAT.
Yes.
So is everyone happy with those payments for authorization?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll sign the sheet again, Bernadette, and
thank you.
Back to you. So after all that, the balance of our account, this is our bank account, our current account, currently stands at £105,324.08. That seems an awful lot of money. £21,000 of it is actually allocated for the playing fields and the sink fund for the playing fields. So that money is ring fenced. The finance working group need to meet soon. We were due to meet a week or so ago. It got cancelled, unfortunately. We need to think about where we invest those kind of capital sums. £49,000 also relates to the Public Open Space Fund and maintenance of the land. So in the precept account, there's £55,923.
Yeah, a lot of that is because we've not been able to do a lot of things because of COVID. So we've not done any advertising, we've not done any room hire, we've not done any drop-ins, and so those normal, if you like, outgoings that we would have that would use the precept has not been used this year.
Yeah.
Bernie, I just noticed on the new cash book, sorry, precept budget new format 2020, that your column H is picking up all of the opening balances and giving the cumulative total, which
it does, yeah, it does, yeah.
Can you? And it hasn't done it above. We could do with just knocking that off.
I know, but because of macros and because of SharePoint and being able to run the macros on SharePoint, some things have to give. I can't get some things exactly how we'd like them. So yes, it accumulates, but it does show the correct figures for what we're actually spending up to date.
Yeah, no, I'm not querying that. It's just the accumulating the opening balances up is a meaningless number, isn't it?
Sorry, the accumulating balance?
It's having a cumulative opening balance number going across the month is a misnomer. It's not. It doesn't mean anything.
No, it's the top number of the other column. As I say, yeah, the macro is something that needs work on the SharePoint. This is where my IT knowledge ends. I'm unsure how to take off the cumulative side without losing other data.
Right, maybe we can just hide the cell, I don't know.
Yeah, hiding the cells is easy. Maybe that's something we look at then, Bernadette, with Colin in the finance working group. And between Colin and myself, we can sort that out.
Can I just check? You were talking about the spreadsheet that's titled draft budget data as of 8/9/2020.
No.
This one? No, not that one. Okay.
No.
Yeah,
Steve's talking about the macro on the end of the worksheet. So the
new cash book monthly 2020, Tom. New cash book 2020, Tom.
Bernadette sent a link out.
Yeah. Okay. That's all right. I haven't got that in front of me. Just carry on.
Put that down as an action for us, Bernadette, to sort out. Try and get it sorted out for the next meeting. And then, of course, we've already talked about the meeting we're going to try and arrange with CCLA to talk about the current POS investment that we have with them in the property fund, but also to look at what other funds they can offer, in terms of diversification of risk and so on. We have got an agenda item 9E to start thinking about the budget and precept for 21-22. Did you sent a draft out, Bernadette, didn't you, with the documentation? I don't know whether anyone's had any time to look at that.
This is the one you're on about, Tom.
Yeah. Just within that, I'd noticed on there like there were at least as it is at the moment, the sales for the estimated income, the expenditure totals, administration totals a few of those have errors in terms of what they're adding up, or at least what seem to be errors, because it doesn't add up all of the lines that seem to be in that section.
Right.
But I suspect what might be happening there is because you're adding up the way you've typed in the formula.
Yeah.
Say if we look at expenditure total for in D20. Have you got that open there?
Yeah.
Then where you're doing equals D19 plus D18 plus D17, then it's kind of very manual and very laborious to type that in.
Yeah.
And if you're missing one of those cells, then it's difficult to notice that you're missing that and do anything about it. So do you know how to do the sum? The sum.
Yeah, I do.
Right, yeah, so I would suggest probably best just to do that. But
I think the thing is with this budget data, what I didn't want to do was bring the preset to you with just, as we normally do, how much we spent last year on a particular item, because looking at this year's budget, everything is totally different to whatever we've spent in the past. So we've got new projects to add on to there, but we've also got to take into consideration that, you know, the advertising, for instance, you know, that we're budgeted for 1,200 and we spent nothing. So it was really to show what we've done over the last 4 years, and not just the last year. This really is just a starting point. What I wanted to do was say, this is what we normally have on there as the expenditure. This is what we have been spending on that expenditure. What we need to look at is any new projects that want to go on there, any expenditure that we're no longer going to be doing. For instance, Zoom's on there, which we've never had to pay before. And so there's quite a few bits that want adding and taking away from this. And this was just a starting point to see where we go to from here on in.
When's our drop dead date for the preset?
November has to be at the preset date.
So we need to make a decision by the November meeting or by the October meeting?
By the November meeting, for the preset, but it is just the preset, so it's not the POS side of it, it's the preset side. So the general administration costs and any additional projects we want to look at in there. Following on from that, just within number 10 of any other business, what I wanted to do is to look at consulting residents, and this is the start of our neighbourhood plan that we were talking about, getting some sort of leaflet printed that we can deliver to every resident to say, what do you want within Sandymoor, apart from the local centre, which we know what the answer for that one is, but to look at leaflets and looking at getting that out. So is that a project that we want to include on next year's budget? So it was really to get us thinking about where we want to see ourselves in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and what we want to put in plan to get to that place.
I think probably, you know, it's going to be quite a big job building the budget up, and it's not something we're going to be able to do this evening as such.
No.
So probably what we want is for everyone to take a look at that first draft and then to feed comments back about what they want including and taking out.
Yes,
and any of the draft sums. And then if you could arrange a finance working group meeting for certainly before the next full parish meeting.
Yeah.
We could kind of review those comments, update the draft here, and then present that to everyone at the next parish council meeting, and maybe allocate a bit more time towards discussing this, because it's important we get it right. I guess what would be useful as well in advance of that is to get some indication from Halton what the total number of houses is likely to be like.
They won't give you that until November.
Okay, how late in or early in November?
Well, this is it. It's usually the second week in November that we actually get the figures. So it's a very, very small turnaround. So if we look at the figures we used last year, that would give us some sort of indication on what we're looking at. And especially because we've not spent all of that precept on what we would have done this year, it will give us a bit of an offset, if you like, to where we could be or should be with the precept.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Is there any chance that we could do some forward forecasting for this year? I mean, I've looked at the numbers that are contained in terms of the expenditure that we've got versus income, etc. And you've done a percentage of money that's been spent. And I just, you know, I'm a big believer in trying to just do some, you know, not only looking back at where expenditure's been, and I know that we had a bit of a moment over that because she didn't want to do it and Simon did it in the end. But the preset part of it, I think, would be really useful just to do a bit of forward forecasting to give us an idea where we're going to land at the end of the financial year. And that would
Which
help.
is why we need to know what projects we want to take on and what we want to do for the next 12 months.
About that. No, I'm talking about that. I'm talking about this year.
I think we could do, we could do that, Steve, because, you know, we just look at it now. We've got monies in for summer fair, which we won't be spending. So you know, we can forecast that fairly accurately. We can look at all the kind of categories, income and expenditure, and do a forward forecast to.
It doesn't have to be perfect, does it? It's
no,
just
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Give us a bit of a general guide as to where we're going to land, because then the discussions that we had last time around how much the precept should go up or not locally for people, it was, you know, I mean, was met with derision, you know, at the cost of 50p a week or something. But the other thing as well is that I see an inherent risk of going to the local population to talk about what you want, because most people don't know the difference between a capital project and something that may be able to be raised out of local funds.
I think this would just, you know, this would form the first part, I guess, of the process of the neighbourhood plan. So we need to get the kind of timing of everything right, I think, when we do this.
I think the wording, more importantly, Simon, is what needs to be right.
Yeah.
You know, I think we can steer people within the leaflet not to ask them what they want per se, but to actually try and get a little bit more of a narrower view over those things, excluding large capital projects such as skate parks, etc. I think, you know, that the marketing of it, I think, is a great idea, Bernadette, but I think that we have to just curb the enthusiasm with what people may send you back. It could be a lot of apathy out there, unfortunately, which tends to, you know, dull down the whole project, doesn't it? And that's what we're up against in trying to second guess what people might.
With a neighbourhood plan, you do need to have that consultation, and that's where my thoughts were, that we need to. I mean, there isn't a leaflet per se. That it is a starting point. That, as I said, this is a starting point to bring together what projects we want for the next few years, and we can only plan those in and look at them. You know, if we know what is available, what we can do and what we can't do, but a consultation.
I guess there's a number of elements to this. You know, the first will be, you know, the council will need to decide whether we want to do a neighbourhood plan or not first, and then, you know, we would need to then follow the due process of starting that off. I know, Adam, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I suppose we're not the first parish to do a neighbourhood plan. So if there's a start of a consultation and a leaflet drop,
there is.
I'm sure there's a huge amount of stuff we could steal from councils that have already been done. I do completely and utterly get where you're coming from, but the idea of a leaflet drop at the moment is just a no-go. You know, it's not something that we should be, I think, thinking about immediately. Surveying residents and coming up with a way of them inputting, absolutely. Having someone going door to door, handling paper, touching all the surfaces is a bloody nightmare as far as I'm concerned. But I'm thinking from infection control more than anything.
Yeah, but probably something we should include in the forward budgets, as you know, for something in the future. So I think that's probably what you're more looking for, Bernadette.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think we need to drive the enthusiasm. We need to drive the excitement. This is a sort of thing you could have, and it actually, you know, that picture of, I think it was Crowwood Park from Widnes, to say this is a sort of thing we're thinking of for the middle. That'll drive the excitement. You know, if I think back to the original, the playing fields and the local centre consultation events we did, it was because we had something tangible that people could come and point and go, yeah, I like that bit, I don't like that bit.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing we need to probably drive. So if there's a bit of a budget to someone who does, well, it's not, I don't know if it's an architect or if it's a planner drawing that says, you know, this is the land that you have, this is the development scope, and these are 2 or 3 options that we could ask the public to say, vote on which one you like best. And that could inform us. That's probably where we need to go. And if we're saving a bit of money this year, that's the sort of thing we could spend it on.
Yeah, agree.
We do have a principle for how we've adopted the precept historically, and it's based on the number calculation increase that Halton will provide to us, as well as I can't remember if it was RPI or CPI. Colin will know it because he proposed it originally. So if we're really struggling with it, we could do that for next year, because I think next year is going to have a ton of unknowns in it. And then possibly it might give us a bit of a war chest to go and create those things that will attract investment into Sandymoor in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll comments from everyone. We'll meet as a working group with Colin, and then put it as an agenda item for October.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll have a better view of that. So I'm really conscious of time. We've been sat here for over 2 hours. So any other business? I think we talked about most of the things on here. Perhaps the things we haven't talked about, 2 new policies up for us to look at: data retention and virtual meeting procedures.
And also the grant application form.
Yeah, sorry. Grant application. Yeah, it's me coughing. Yeah, that's right.
So I've
anyone
sent
had
them.
a chance to look at those?
I had a look at the moment. I'm absolutely fine with a virtual meeting. I think that's incredibly sensible. It's much more formal than we run things, but that's fine for the policy. The data retention, I've got one challenge for you, is around, it says routine correspondence and emails, and we'll only keep those for 6 months. I think given how much you're currently having to dredge up from past correspondence, actually that almost should be indefinitely.
Where sorry, is that?
So it's on the very top of page 3. No, 4.
Page 4. Routine correspondence and email 6 months.
I think you'll have a challenge with that, but given we've got the Office 365 license, actually keeping them indefinitely isn't a problem. It's just whether we think there's a risk to doing that, but us looking back over our correspondence with other agencies seems sensible.
I mean, this data retention policy came from Chalk, so that's where I've got the figures from. I've not just made them up.
No, I get that.
That doesn't mean that we can't change them. Absolutely, we can change them. So what would you like it to say?
I'm probably indefinite. You know, if you look at the table, minimum retention period indefinite, reason archive. I think that's completely valid for those.
Okay. Yeah.
So routine correspondence indefinite.
Yep.
Okay.
Actually, hold on. That's to do with planning and
applications.
yeah, we don't actually have our email on here anywhere, do we?
No, we don't really, do we?
No.
It's not really. It's not particularly relevant because we don't. You know, we don't do. You know, we comment on planning applications, but we're not the.
No, but all of the emails that Bernadette would send from day to day, I would think that probably needs picking up somewhere, because that's probably the most valuable bit of data that we hold, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But that was the only comment. The other ones, obviously, there's been comments on the grants application as it's gone through. Yeah. I think it's in a good place, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I'm really comfortable with that. I think that's a cracking piece of work.
Yeah. So is everyone happy to ratify and approve those 3 documents with the changes to the email records?
Yeah.
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 Great.
Sorry, I was just coming off mute. I was just looking at that data retention one because I had misread it as well. I'd missed the fact that those ones at the top of page 4 only relate to planning applications. So there is nothing in here about, oh, hang on, sorry, correspondence not otherwise covered in this schedule. Bottom of the table on page 3, while valid.
Yeah.
That I guess covers routine emails.
That would cover the emails.
I mean, my question immediately then is what does while valid mean? But I certainly agree with the earlier comment that it should be a great deal longer than 6 months. Maybe that means effectively indefinitely until it's obviously obsolete.
Yeah.
And I'd be comfortable with that. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Do we all agree with that?
We do.
Yeah.
Okay. In which case, I'm happy. Yes. Yes.
So if we're talking about that one being indefinite, what about the planning one? The routine correspondence for the planning?
That's Holton.
Yeah.
The planning, so it mentions how long they'll keep it, not for us.
So we'll leave that at the 6 months then, yeah?
Well, presumably that's correct for Holton Borough Council.
Yeah.
We're talking on their data retention, not ours.
That's fine. I'll get that changed and then over to you, Simon.
Okay. Yep. That's fine.
Okie dokie.
Yeah. So then I think that covers any other business because I think we've covered everything else.
Yeah.
Sorry, Simon. So now the grant application form has got everyone's approval. I'm okay to go ahead and produce the loan side of it then, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, I'll get that done for next meeting.
So the loan is going to sit separate to the grant, is that correct?
Yes.
So the grant one I can send out then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the football people.
Yeah.
I think it's recapping on it. The danger was if we put in, we might consider giving you a loan, that it would open up, you know, something that we didn't, you know, a road we didn't want to go down.
Yeah. Yeah. Fabulous.
Okay. So item 11 on the agenda is to agree any items to be placed on next month's agenda. So we're going to talk about the finances in more detail and the budget forward forecast for the rest of this year.
Yeah, finance meeting.
And the precepts. Is there anything else people
Red
want?
Row, I'll get as much information on Red Row as I can.
Yep. Yep.
And then we'll have a look at the macro during the finance meeting.
Yep.
There was a couple of other points to take forward to Lyndon, but they don't need to go on the agenda because they're just information points.
We will have to have a playing fields meeting with the school.
We will.
That will need to happen this term.
Yeah.
And have we elected a new chair of that group? Because I know I missed the meeting. Because we'll need to do that, because obviously I've got potentially a pecuniary interest and I'm the current chair. I'm more than happy to still be involved in the meeting, but I probably shouldn't be one of our nominated representatives. I should be there as a non-voting. From a governance perspective, I shouldn't be there with a decision-making capability.
And the same goes for me. The same goes for me, Adam. I shouldn't be there in the capacity as the governor of the school as well. I've definitely got a conflict there.
I'm more than happy to feed in information.
As you know, Adam, I was on the committee with you. I couldn't make the last meeting you had, but I was only there to run shotgun for you.
So I think both Steve and Tom have both attended one of the meetings. So would either of you like the chair of the meeting? And if so, would anyone like to put names into a hat and draw them out?
My honest opinion is that I would embarrass myself trying to chair a meeting that I don't really know an awful lot about.
Which is why I think Adam would be there as someone who knows everything about the development.
We've only had one meeting of it. I don't think there's going to be a massive amount to discuss, in all honesty, because they've only just made it operational. Yeah. So probably the first meeting is how's it going? Let's see the figures that they have to provide to us, and let's have a look. Is that suitable for us to make a decision? We chair the first year.
Yeah, where are we in terms of that calendar for us chairing and then chairing?
We've got this term and next term, and then they have to provide a chair.
Okay.
Well, I'm happy to attend the meeting. If being chair doesn't make just a difference to me one way or another. I was more looking at the financials in terms of how well they're operating with it, to make sure they're getting value for money out of it. But from a trading perspective, I'm happy to be chair if that helps, as long as you're there, Adam, because you're the guy with all the knowledge. And no
more than happy to come along. I think we do have a little bit, not so much a risk, because the way the financials work is the more the field and the tennis courts are used, the bigger the amount of money that comes to us for the sink fund, because it's more.
Why don't Tom and I go as joint chair? And then if one of us isn't available, the other one's there.
Well, can I just also check, do you think this is likely to be a Zoom meeting?
Oh yeah.
As well, in that case. Yeah, because in that case I wouldn't want to be being the chair in a Zoom meeting on my own. So as you may have noticed, I have to keep jumping out because a child is doing something or other in the background, which I don't think would be a great position for a chair to be in.
I thought you were sucking on some laughing gas then, Tom.
We need to also think about the independent person to go on the board as well. I know it was Sean Bailey was a name that was passed around. I don't know if you want me to make contact with him to see if that's something he would be interested in doing.
Let the meeting decide how it wants to invite people.
Okay.
It's not for us to do. It's for the governance group to do, not for the council alone.
All right.
Yeah.
So the school will need input in that, because I'm sure they might have some ideas. Actually, I could be the independent. Well, it doesn't just have to be one person, does it? From the reference, it can be whatever number they want.
Yeah.
So I'd obviously be attending in a non-official capacity, so I'd be technically there as an independent. The independent's a voting member, so I don't think that could be me.
Can I check, Bernie, when you keep mentioning Sean Bailey, had he actually expressed an interest in it, or had someone just randomly mentioned his name and volunteered him without his knowledge at all?
No, he attended a parish council meeting when we were discussing the playing field, and he was very informative because that's what he does. And so we had a lot of football and pitch information that he gave us, So I think the team thought that he would be a good person to be involved with taking the playing field forward.
We said if there's a room for a place on a steering committee, would he want to be? And way back then he did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether his life's changed since then, that's probably one of the questions we need to ask, and there might well be other people interested too.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we're on to the last bit. Next meeting. Hey. So that's so that's on the next one's scheduled for September. No, it's not. It's scheduled for 15th of October.
September 15th of October.
Yeah, I was reading it straight off the agenda. It must be Thursday, the 15th of October.
Correct.
At 7 p.m. and that will almost certainly be by Zoom again.
Does anyone want anything?
One very quick thing. We've just approved the data retention policy. Would that cover what we do with the YouTube broadcast?
Should do.
Because obviously this is going out live. The moment Bernadette hits stop, it's viewable. It'll be on there for people to look at. At some point, should we delete that?
How long do we hold the
Zoom till the minutes?
The minutes.
The minutes are indefinite as an archive.
Yeah. Well, I guess the minutes are the legal record, aren't they? The official record. So
they'll wind up in Chester in the archive. The Zoom one is much more ephemeral, I would have thought.
Yeah. So maybe it only needs
until we've actually confirmed we're happy with the minutes.
Yeah.
For that meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Or do we leave it for longer?
This is part of transparency, isn't it? If someone comes to us in 6 months and says, I wasn't able to come, but I'll be really interested in the discussion.
Yeah.
I think a retention period of something like a year would be good. If it's older than that, then who on earth wants to know what we were talking about in 2017? But if we said we'll keep them for a year, I mean, it's YouTube's space, isn't it? It's not as if it's costing us anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think there's any reason to cut them off very quickly. As you say, it's more transparent to say, well, yeah, anybody can go and see what we did and what we talked about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And issues could still be live in that sort of period.
Yeah, I'd be happy with a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you include that in the amendment to that document, Bernadette.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be other things we think of as time goes on. So it might well be a living document for a couple of months when we go, oh yeah, we didn't think of that.
Yeah.
But that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Does anyone want anything added to next month's agenda?
Don't know yet.
At the moment.
Not at the moment.
For the moment, no. Great. Well, that is the end of our business today. There's no part B.
Sorry, I've forgotten something. Vistry did say that if we wanted them to join a Zoom meeting, they would do. So if you want me to ask them to October's, I could do that.
That could be useful given the interest at the moment. Yes.
Yeah, might get a few more members of the public along as well.
If we want to put any slides up, let's open up the screen share to them as well.
Yeah.
That might actually be really helpful for them to explain what's going on in the staging or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay, I will invite them to the meeting. Fabulous. Sorry.
Great, thank you everyone. So I have signed the relevant bits of paperwork, Bernadette, so I'll drop those around later.
Thank you.
Pop them through your letterbox. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers. Take care.
Cheers, folks.
Okay.